Greg Chappell, thank you very much for your time. A devastating couple of days for the nation, for you personally. A great mate of yours, Rod Marsh, lost, and now another good friend of yours you didn't play with, but I know you're close to, in Shane Warne. It's disbelief right now, Greg.
Absolutely, Kieran. It's been a shocking week. We'd just sort of come to grips with the fact that Rod was gone and woke up to the news about Shane. You know, they're both larger-than-life characters. Rod I knew very well, played a lot of cricket with. He was the sort of character you expected to live forever, so that was a big enough shock in itself. But, blokes our age dropping off the perch is sort of expected. But Shane Warne, no, that was a huge shock. I know I got messages from all around the world, from people whose life he'd touched, who either knew him well or didn't know him so well, but had watched him play cricket. Even whether they were foes or friends, they had great respect for Shane Warne. He had a huge impact on the game, and he continued to have a huge impact on the game. But I don't think many people realise, what a champion bloke he was as well. I mean, everyone knows his media persona, but he's a very generous, very caring individual, and had been very generous to a lot of people, which most wouldn't know about apart from close friends. So a hell of a week. I hope it doesn't get any worse than this.
Absolutely. And Greg, when you look at the career of Warnie, if we start with him, we saw that ball there to Gadding, the ball of the century as it's called. As someone who knows the game better than anyone, what made him so magical?
I think there are a lot of things. Physically, he was very strong. He had big hands, he had big shoulders. He was strongly built, very sturdy individual. He had a very strong mind as well. He had a huge self-belief, and I think that was the important thing. I don't think he started out that way. His early, his first few Test matches were, weren't sensational, but he soon started to develop that belief, and he also had the ability to play the mind games. He was as much a conjurer as he was a bowler. He created a scene and a narrative that he would get the batsman sucked into, and he'd even get the umpires sucked into it, almost willing things to happen. I played a lot of golf with Shane in recent years, and he did the same thing on the golf course. Luckily, I was generally a teammate of his on the matches that we played, and I saw him absolutely will magic shots, magic putts to at critical times, and it destroyed the opposition, and they didn't quite know how to handle it. He was larger than life. One point I'd like to make, I've read a couple of things and heard a couple of things about what Warnie might have been doing in Thailand, and particularly around drugs. Warnie didn't do drugs. He hated drugs. He didn't need drugs. He was high on life. He didn't actually drink a lot. Probably the one thing that most of us as friends worried about was that he did smoke, and he enjoyed a smoke, but drinking and drugs weren't a big part of, drugs certainly weren't any part of Shane's life. He was a doting father. He loved his kids. He talked about them whenever he got the opportunity. And really the Warnie that most people saw on the media wasn't the Warnie we knew. He was great company. He was a really good man.
And one of the things that we love to admire about him as well, I think, Greg, and it takes it above and transcends just cricket or even just sport, the fact that he was normal, a larrikin.
Yeah. He was the quintessential Australian larrikin, really. He loved to take on the administration. He loved to challenge anything and everyone. He lived his life his own way. He was sensitive. He understood that there were stories out there, and he didn't really enjoy being on the front page, but he genuinely didn't worry about what other people thought of him. He was only worried about his family and what his friends thought, and lived his life the way he wanted to live it. And you've got to admire that in so many ways. I think we could all do with not worrying about what other people think about us and just get on with our own lives, and Warnie certainly did that.
The other thing that we should touch on is the fact that he is loved. He's adored, isn't he, on the subcontinent? And even in the UK, where he tormented English batsmen, but they still love him.
Yeah, they do, and I think that's that's the mark of the man. He is loved and widely loved in all of those areas, wherever he's been, even places he hasn't been, because he really made cricket attractive. He made Test cricket attractive. He made spin bowling attractive, and in his early days, he made that ball hum like very few people did. After his shoulder injury, that's where a lot of the the magic and the conjuring came, because he bluffed people into thinking that he was still the great Shane Warne that he was at the start. But again, it was his strong will and his intelligence. I playing golf with him, you get to know someone pretty well when you spend 4 hours on a golf course with them and then another 4 hours afterwards talking about it. I asked Warnie about his interest in poker, and he had a great mind for numbers and patterns in numbers. And again, he was a bluffer. He loved to pretend that he wasn't that smart and then outsmart everyone in the room.
Yeah. As you said, he did it with so many batsmen, became his bunny, like Darryl Cullinan, others, I guess Bell from England. But who I've been enjoying your book about the challenges facing cricket today. What can our players of today and tomorrow learn from your mate, Warnie, but also Rod Marsh, from those two legends? What can they give in terms of an ongoing legacy that young people can learn from, both on and off the pitch?
Yeah, look, I think it's a good point, because they were very similar characters. They attacked life, and it was their passion for whatever they did that came through, and it inspired others. Rod was like that. He had a real gung-ho sort of attitude, another quintessential Australian larrikin that people could relate to. They'd look at Dennis Lillee and Jeff Thompson and the others on the field, and they wouldn't relate to that, but they'd look at Rod, a little bit overweight, didn't look overly athletic. In fact, he was very athletic, and they thought, well, I could be Rod Marsh, and I could be Shane Warne. But so they related very, very well. But I think their passion and their enthusiasm and their very positive approach to everything that they did. And again, Rod was a little bit like Shane in that he didn't worry too much about what other people thought. He did what he wanted to do, and he did it with a gusto and a passion that we could all learn from. And I was talking to our grandson, our eldest grandson, the other day, and said, mate, whatever it is, find something you're passionate about, because it'll never feel like work, and you'll succeed without even thinking about it. And I think that's, again, a lesson that we could all learn from both Rod and Shane.
Tough time for the nation, tough time for you personally. My condolences, Greg Chappell, the loss of a couple of mates. I very much appreciate your time this Sunday. Thanks.
My pleasure, Kieran. Thank you.